أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي آمين يا رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum everyone. I hope all of you are doing great, and I also hope that you have watched the previous two lessons as well as the previous two sections regarding the basics of Arabic grammar. Today inshallah we are going to study the structure of jumla ismia, which as we had covered yesterday forms the subcategory of the jumla khabariya. And what is a jumla khabariya? It is the one that gives you some form of information. Okay, all right, so first of all we are going to study very briefly about certain points from this illustration. Okay, and then we are going to study the rest of the part of this illustration after our main lecture. So this is actually your summary, as you can see, and it summarizes all the points, and then we're going to elaborate on them in the main lesson. All right, so jumla khabriya, the ones that give you information, and it is broadly classified into jumla fi'liya, the ones that begin with a fi'l, or jumla ismiya, the ones that begin with an ism. Okay, now what should be the sequence? Okay, first of all you need to know these terminologies. You may want to go with subject and predicate, but it would be easier and better rather if you learned these terminologies. Okay, and of course you know that I only tell you or ask you to memorize the terminologies where it is absolutely necessary or it's going to help you out for the future lessons, inshallah. Okay, so stick to these terminologies. You've got mubtada, and it simply means the word or the ism with which any sentence begins. Okay, so mubtada is the beginner of the sentence. It is also called masnad alayh, but I don't like this terminology, so it's okay if you don't want to cram this one either. Okay, so it's fine. Remember mubtada though. Okay, then we have this mubtada is followed by khabar. Khabar is your predicate, or of course he is a doctor, for example here. All right, so the word he is mubtada and is a doctor. This is your khabar. Okay, all right, and khabar is called musnad. And once again, it's okay if you don't want to remember this, it's totally all right. Next, there may be more than one khabars. Okay, so if you have there is this main khabar, then you have mutaliq khabar. Okay, this is usually jar majroor fragment, but it could be anything else also. Okay, so that is what that you need to remember: mubtada, khabar, and then mutaliq khabar. Okay, now the points regarding each of these have been summarized in this table. Forget the arrows for now. We will do the arrows after the main lesson. All right, so forget about this part. Okay, all right, first things first. Our sample sentence is over here. Al-Kitabu Jadidun. Now, if you remember from the first lesson of section C, I told you that one of the ways of working out if it is a sentence or a phrase is the M N combo. Okay, so if the first ism is marfa due to any reason and the next one is nakra, then that is your jumla ismiya. Okay, so this is what you can observe here. The word al-kitabu is marfa due to this alif lam, and the next ism jadidun is nakra. All right, and all the other characteristics of the ism are same. Al-kitabu is grammatically masculine, so is jadidun. The word al-kitabu is singular, so is the word jadidun. Okay, and what's the next one? Arab, yeah. So we have our Rafa, Al Kitabu is Rafa, and our Jadidun, which is the second ism, is also Rafa. Alright, so this is what. So Al Kitabu Jadidun means the book is new, and Al Kitabul Jadidu would be the new book. Kitabun Jadidun would be a new book. Okay, so learn to differentiate between these things now. Okay, now that we know our sample sentence, we are now going to proceed to the pointers about it. Okay, first one says that, all right, now I have color coded this entire slide. Okay, so wherever you see the blue color, it would be your mubtada. Okay, all right, so it would be your mubtada, and wherever you see this dark green color, that would be your khabar, and wherever you see anything written in red color, that would be your mutaliq khabar. Okay, so that was a way to cram it less, actually, or rather prevent it from cramming up. Anyways, so let's proceed with our characteristics. So we see the word rafa in blue, so that means that a mubtada is always rafa. Okay, unless, okay, for example, if I have any harf nasab behind al-kitabu in al-kitaba, but the khabar remains rafa no matter what. Okay, so this is the only point that is obvious. Okay, so under normal situations, your mubtada is always going to be rafa, but there could be something that is causing it to be not rafa, okay. So in that sense, you in that situation, you are going to look for the reason for it not being rafa. If it is nasab, what is the reason? For example, you know how we keep reciting the ayah, inna allaha ala kulli shay'in qadirun, right? So um, here it is actually the mubtada is actually the word Allah, right? And it is actually, in a regular sentence, it would have been Allahu qadirun ala kulli shay'in. And I'll tell you this thing briefly, okay, shortly here. Um, However, there is harf nasab right behind the word Allah, so that has converted that word Allahu to Allaha. Okay, that's what. So this is what this unless represents. Okay, so our mubtada is always going to be rafa unless there's a reason for it not to be rafa. Next, our khabar is always going to be marfu or simply rafa. Okay, so i'rab wise, both of them are going to be rafa. All right, it's totally uh, different scenario for each mutaliq khabar, and usually since it is a jar majrur fragment, um, we don't really need any rule for that. Okay, so you'll just know when you are going to find a mutaliq khabar. Okay, so the i'rab that I would want you to remember are that of your mubtada and khabar. Okay, so remember these. Okay, next point. Now this one is also the one that we have already covered previously. The number, the grammatical gender are of the khabar are according to the mubtada. Okay, and we observed it here. Okay, this is that we have already established that the grammatical gender and the number of the khabar are according to that of mubtada or those of mubtada. Okay, all right, and of course you can see it here. Next point. Once again, this is something that we have established previously. The status. Now the status of the mubtada is always marfa, okay, and the status of khabar is always nakra. Now you see two unlesses over here. Let me clear the board and show you like this. Okay, so you've got the statuses over here. You've got mubtada as marfa, all right, and you've got khabar as nakra, all right. However, you see two unlesses over here. This unless portion is something that we're going to address after our main lesson. At this moment, just remember that for a regular sentence, all the mubtadas are going to be marfa and all the khabars are going to be nakra. Okay, next point. Our sequence of these three words is as follows. First, you have got mubtada, all right, that is followed by khabar, and that khabar is followed by mutaliq khabar or khabar sani, or just remember mutaliq khabar. It is the second khabar. Okay, unless, all right, so this sequence can also be altered. And when is that going to happen? Once again, we're going to address it after the main lesson. Okay, all right. Next, we have this last point, that if the khabar is obvious, it often gets omitted. And then you've got an arrow over here, and once again we're going to address this arrow part after the lesson, after the main lesson. Okay, so this is what, now just to summarize it, you've got 5 things that you need to remember, absolutely remember, about jumla ismiya. First of all, mubtada is always going to be rafa unless it has a reason to not be rafa. Okay, so you'll always find some harf nasab or some reason for it not to be rafa. Okay, khabar is always going to be rafa no matter what. Okay, then you have your grammatical gender and number of the khabar identical or in accordance to that of mubtada. Done. Then we've already once again established that the mubtada is going to be marfa. In a regular sentence, it is always going to be marfa, and the khabar is always going to be nakra. Okay, and then we did this sequence thing that we always see mubtada first, which is followed by khabar, which is followed by mutaliq khabar. And if the khabar is obvious, that often gets omitted. That is it. Okay, now let's look at the table. All right, and this is just another way of expressing all of what I've just told you, okay, with a few examples. Okay, so structure of jumla ismiya is dependent upon 2 things. We have our mubtada, aka subject, and then we have our khabar, predicate. Okay, forget these 2 terminologies, stick to this. Okay, for example, now you've got 3 examples. You are going to apply the 5 points I told you in the illustration above to each of these examples. Okay, let's do it for this one. All right, and then I'm going to ask you to pause the screen and apply those 5 pointers to these 2 situations or examples. Okay, remember mubtada is going to be in blue color and khabar is going to be in green color. Okay, all right. All right, so this is marfa, this is nakra, this is rafa, rafa, this is grammatically masculine, and this is rafa and musanna, okay, to a number, waladani, okay, and salihani. So it's only the status that is different. All right, this one is marfa, this one is nakra, so it is a sentence. The 2 boys are pious or righteous. Okay, that is what it means. Now pause the screen and see if you can apply these 2 things, or rather these 5 pointers to these 2 sentences. Alright, so I hope that you were able to do this one as well, and that you noticed how in a regular sentence the mubtada comes first, followed by khabar, followed by a mutaliq khabar, which I told you is often based on, or that often is composed of your jar majrur fragment. And here we have jar majrur fragment along with the muzaf ilayh fragment. Okay, so now you should be able to identify these things at a glance. Okay, now in a regular sentence, this is just a tabular way of expressing all of what we have already done in the previous one. Okay, so don't worry at just don't worry at this entire thing. Okay, now in a regular sentence, what happens? What are the characteristics of a mubtada and khabar? Okay, so of course our sample sentence is al-bintani salihatani. This is marfa nakra, rafa rafa, grammatically feminine, grammatically feminine, musanna musanna. What is this? The 2 girls are pious. That is it. Okay, now Arab wise, the mubtada is always going to be rafa unless, for example, innal bintaini salihatani. Okay, next the khabar is always going to be rafa. Okay, we have already established it in the slide above. Then we have the status, and mubtada is always marfa. Once again, we have already established it. and the khabar is always going to be nakra. The grammatical gender and number of the khabar are going to be according to the mubtada, so we know that it is mubtada that dictates these 2 points about the khabar. Okay, next we have the sequence. So first of all, we always have your mubtada, and then after the mubtada we get khabar, and then muta'alliq khabar. Okay, once again, this is the regular sentence. Okay, next, now mubtada is always going to be an ism. Alright, but khabar can either be an ism, fi'l, or jumla. Okay, so keep your eyes open for any of these. But mubtada is always going to be ism. Alright, next we have the possibilities, certain possibilities. Now, um, let's scroll it up a bit. Okay, yeah. So what you see here is a collection or a list of possibilities both for mubtada and khabar. Okay, so what are the possibilities for mubtada? They may be more than one in number. Okay, but then they would be connected with some special haruf or words, and we will study them next. Okay, haruf ataf. All right, so for example, Fatima and Zaid are Salihani, or simply pious. Okay, so Salihani is your mubtada, your khabar. Okay, and it is also nakra, as you might have noticed over here. Okay, and why is it musanna? Because it is representing the information about two asma, two mubtadas. Okay, so Fatimatu and Zaidun. Fatimatu, I hope that you remember this is ghair munsarif ism because it doesn't carry a tanween. So what would be its nasab and jar forms? There would be Fatimata, Fatimata. Remember, okay, because the nasab and jar forms of ghair munsarif asma are identical. Okay, so this was the only possibility at this stage for mubtada. Now let's address the same thing for khabar. Now there may be more than one khabars. We have already established it, and the second khabar is called muta'alliq khabar. And we also did the fact that the muta'alliq khabar is often based on jar majrur fragment. Okay. Next, if the khabar is obvious, it is often omitted and only muta'alliq khabar remains. Okay, now we are going to do that first arrow that we had omitted over there, or rather that we have ignored in the slide above. Okay, so what about it? I say that if the khabar is obvious, it is often omitted. Okay, so for example, in English, focus here. In English, we say that, for example, the boy is present in the house. Now, you don't really say this, do you? You either say that the boy is in the house, or there's no other way really. Okay, because unless you really have to put a lot of stress on the fact that he's present in the house, you don't really have to say the word present, because obviously no one is going to be absent from the in the house. Okay, because if you're using in, you have to, it's understood that he's in the house, he's present in the house. Similarly, if you say that I entered the building, you simply say I entered the building. You don't say I entered in the building, because it is obvious that you're only going to enter in the building, not enter out of it. Okay, you can exit out of it, but you cannot enter out of it. So it is obvious. So whenever your khabar is obvious, even in English it gets omitted. This is what happens. We always say the boy is in the house. We omit the predicate over here. We omit the word present. Okay, the same thing happens in Arabic. Al-waladu mawjudun. Mawjudun means present. Al-waladu mawjudun fil bayti. Okay, remember the color coding. Mubtada, khabar, muta'alliq khabar. Okay, now obviously applying the same thing over here, we simply omit this khabar, and it becomes al-waladu fil bayti. Okay, so that's what. All right, next is something once again that we have already covered, that muta'alliq khabar is usually jar majroor. Okay, So if you want to put stress in a sentence, there are certain changes that you can bring about to the normal formation or sequence, or normal statuses of the sentence components. Okay, so for example, if you remember, I told you that the status of the khabar is always going to be nakra unless. Okay, so there was a situation that said that it may be marfa. What are those situations, or what would be the implication of such a situation? Okay, so for example, if you have Allahu Samadu. Okay, now uh, it may seem to defy, it is defying the normal grammatical rule of a sentence. Okay, so, because your khabar is nakra. Okay, so I'm sorry, it is not nakra, but it is marfa. So the indication, or rather the implication is that the there is a stress. Okay, so because of this stress, and this stress is the type that you can understand as no one but you. All right, that no one but you, or no one else, or nothing else but the mubtada. That is what you can understand, and this is what is being given by this subtle change in the status of your khabar, that only Allah and no one else is the samad. What does the word samad mean? It means someone upon whom everyone is dependent, but he is independent upon anyone. Now this entire thing has been emphasized upon 1,000 times just by this formation, and you would understand it only if you know about it. Otherwise it would just be another phrase. Okay, so it's, these things start making sense a lot. Okay, and then you can connect to them very easily, inshallah. All right, what's the other unless thing that we saw over there in the illustration? We saw that the status of mubtada is always going to be marfa unless, and then I had written a situation. All right, so it may be nakra. All right, and if your mubtada is going to be nakra, then it is always going to be placed after the khabar or mutaliq khabar. Okay, for example, our actual sentence is this: al marazu, the disease, mawjudun, is present, fi qulubihim, in their hearts. Okay, but first of all, we don't need this mawjudun. Why? Because well, it's obvious. Okay, so we omit the khabar. Next, in order to produce stress, what do? We make this mubtada nakra. And if we do that, we have to shift it to the end. And that's what we observe here. Fi qulubihim marazun. Now there's stress on this marazun. In their hearts, in fact, there's a stress in the entire formation. Okay, so in their hearts is definitely a disease. This is what it implies. Okay, fi qulubihim marazun. That's how you are going to understand it as. Okay, so these were your um, exceptions. So now you can see it here as well, that the status is going to be nakra unless, for example, and just remember this example and you'll know. Okay, that for example, Allahu Samad, if you would need to put stress with the concept of no one but you, or no one but the mubtada. All right, so this is the concept that is imparted with this subtle change. Next was our marfa. All right, so our mubtada is always going to be marfa unless this example. If we want to put stress, then we are going to make it nakra, and once we do that, we are going to place the mubtada after khabar mutaliq khabar. Okay, so that's what. And then we did this one as well, that the mubtada, that the sequence is going to be mubtada followed by khabar followed by mutaliq khabar, and this once again can be disturbed if we alter the sequence of these components. Then a stress is produced, and we can observe it here as well. Okay, next, because you see our mutali khabar is in the beginning, and that is followed by our mubtada, and then we had already covered this arrow. Okay, so this illustration has been done. Now just the last example, and I hope that you'll be able to work this out by now yourselves, inshallah. So our simple sentence is Allahu Qadirun. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is uh, in in ever control. Okay, Qadirun. We're going to complete all of these patterns too, inshallah, and we'll see how much or what they imply. Okay, and then you'll be able to understand and feel what this word Qadirun is actually. Okay. All right, now we are going to add a bit of stress by adding this mutal khabar. All right, so a very subtle kind of stress is produced by this thing. So Allahu qadirun ala kulli shay'in, upon everything. All right, actually because this is nakra, so it kind of gives implication that there is a stress because about everything, every single thing. That's what it says. All right, now we need to put more stress. We add in a. So this becomes our nasab. Mubtada becomes nasab. Nallaha qadirun ala kulli shayin. Now we want to put more stress. We shift this khabar to the end. Inna allaha ala kulli shayin qadirun. Okay, so this is it is a statement of a huge stress that can be understood only if you know these things. Okay, only then you can be able to connect with this on a linguistic or on a language uh, manner, really. Okay, so that's what I hope that you have understood these things and that you would remember this. I would want you to memorize these things. Okay, I told you not to memorize anything in the previous lesson, but in this lesson I would ask you to memorize these things because this thing would form the basis of what we are going to see in the upcoming lessons, inshallah. Okay, so well, this lesson has been stretched a bit, but well, this is worth it. Okay, because this was an important one. So in the next lesson, inshallah, we're going to study the haruf ataf, which inshallah is going to be a much shorter lesson. And inshallah, we are going to learn a lot of haruf in that lesson. Till that time, practice and apply these concepts during your recitation. And I'll see you in the next lesson. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim. Allah Hafiz.